viewers of Equinoxe Television, 6 p.m. by us to the clock. It's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us. Our magistrates right away the presence of the transitional government of Gabon Brigadier General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema is in Cameroon. His visit is coming shortly after the military coup d'etat in Gabon, which saw the ousting of former Gabonese President Ali Bongo. General Brice Oligui Nguema finally visits the Unity Palace after touring every other country of the CEMAC and even Equinoxe after he took over power. And still in this edition of the news, as end-of-year festivities draw near, prices of goods of basic necessities, especially foodstuff, continue to skyrocket in markets across the national territory. Our reporters were at the New Daido market in Douala, where traders, just like the consumers or buyers, are crying foul. Viewers, those are our major stories. Details when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. We begin with this news from Yaoundé, the nation's political capital, where the Gabonese transitional President Brigadier General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, we told you in the headlines, is in Cameroon. He arrived at 12:30 p.m. and was welcomed at the Yaoundé Simalan Airport by the Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph John Goutte, alongside other top government officials. General Brice and his entourage, despite the heavy rains or downpour in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé headed directly for the Unity Palace, where he was received by the president, the presidential couple, President Paul Biya and wife. The visit of General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema comes months after the coup d'etat in Gabon, which ousted the former president Ali Bongo. We will come back with details that will be in a subsequent editions. And now we talk something else. We take these cover shots from the southwest region, where we got into the studio. We got information that a fire incident has ravaged parts of Chariot Hotel. It is in Boya along the Muya Road. That was earlier today. That was when the fire incident happened. The actual cause of the fire is still unknown, and the flames were put out with the help of neighbors and also benevolent persons. Also, we will be coming back with details in our subsequent news editions. As well, we told you in the headlines, viewers, Cameroonians say they are at the verge of not being able to afford at least 2 square meals for their families a day. Their concerns were raised after noticing that prices of basic necessities, especially foodstuff, have drastically increased in markets across the national territory. And according to the consumers, if nothing is done to remedy the situation or their plight, they risk not being able to celebrate end-of-year festivities. Immaculate Fogwe visited the Savaga market, and she now tells us the cost of some of these basic commodities in this report.
The prices of food items ranging from beans, pepper, onion, granules and vegetables are on a steady rise. Touring the Sadaga market in the Douala 1 subdivision, several buyers encountered decry high cost while recounting how it has significantly impacted their purchasing power. Most breadwinners say they are now forced to reduce their food intake from 3 square meals a day to 2 or even less. Traders on their part blame the hike on rising insecurity in the conflict-hit northwest and southwest regions, poor harvest and high cost of farm input. Beans is very expensive. Before, a cup was sold at 250 francs, now it costs 400 francs. We have no choice than to buy it, but then we can't eat well. I don't know how we will celebrate end-of-year festivities. Onions are expensive because this is not a season. A bag of onions now costs 130,000 francs CFA. Before, it was either sold at 50,000 francs or 75,000 francs for a bag. A lot of our clients are complaining, but there's nothing we can do. However, there are some other basic commodities such as tomatoes, cabbages and cucumber that have been spared by the price hike. Traders encourage consumers to make use of this period.
La tomate est au prix normal.
The price of tomatoes is stable. You can get a basket for 4,500 francs and sometimes less. But from the 20th of December, the prices might likely skyrocket because of end-of-year festivities. So we urge the population to take this opportunity to get their tomatoes, carrots and cabbages now.
Demande est très grande et l'offre est minime.
Consumers decry the hike while urging authorities to take adequate measures to address their plights now and during the festive period.
And now the city of Douala has been somehow dirty for some time now, and the local inhabitants have been complaining. It is some months after the city council launched the Douala Clean City Initiative. How far is the Douala Clean City Initiative is what our reporter Cedric Chakutio sought to find out.
For several months now, the city of Douala has been plagued with poor waste disposal, resulting in urban disorder, a situation deployed by population who are equally accusing the city council of not doing their job adequately.
We are the ones who wake up in the morning, we really want to sweep. It's not doing their job.
Voir nos mamans là à côté de bar là, ils souffrent de la maladie. En moins d'un an, on a eu 6 morts là-bas à côté. Vous pouvez vous renseigner.
Having understood the consequences of poor waste disposal on the population, administrative authorities headed by the littoral governor embarked on the Operation Douala Clean City. An operation aimed to make the city of Douala void of dirt.
We started with the place of douche, and we are going today for, let's say, 2, 3, 4 divisions to be sure that this work is going on.
Though the operation is applauded by residents, they however raise concerns on where they are expected to dump their garbages, given that trash bins have been removed from major streets.
Et les bacs qu'on a positionnés pour nous sont donc ouf pour ces ordures.
As an aim to make the city of Douala clean, the governor promises more action on their part.
And now we take you back to the southwest region, precisely in the Kupe Maninguba division, where the local inhabitants or villagers of the Koba village blocked the main entrance into the village that was the main road. The people are decrying the imposition of a chief for the village, the Koba village, by the TO for Konye. Let's now have more with our reporters Magic and Gabriel.
Into the premises, lodging the office of the senior divisional officer of Meme was a Herculean task for those who wanted to use the office. Angry inhabitants from Koba village in Konye subdivision had blocked the main entrance, decrying the dictatorship attitude of the divisional officer for Konye, Deb Moses.
This aspect that the DO for Konye is imposing us a candidate who is not the choice of the people. And because of this, we are not accepting this candidate. And he is going on now with that young man, intimidating us, holding people, locking people. I myself, I was locked up in Konye. A house that has not got a father, things will never move well. So we have difficulties in leadership. We need a head in the house.
The natives demonstrated in front of the SDO's office with placards that has messages like, "Don't destabilize our peaceful village by imposing a chief in Koba. You cannot force a candidate to be a chief and stop the illegal arrest of Koba people."
The village is our village. We know our culture more than him. We are those who make the choice and present to him, not him making a choice and present to us. It has never happened that way. We are losing a lot from the government because we don't have somebody who is representing us when it comes to the government.
The first assistant senior divisional officer of Meme, Cho Leonard, stepped out of his office to address the angry Koba natives in front of the accused divisional officer of Konye, Deb Moses, before taking the spokesperson of the Koba natives inside for a dialogue in which he promised to solve the situation. After leaving the SDO's office, the angry inhabitants of Koba village marched on to the High Court in Kumba, where some of their colleagues have been locked up and requested that all of them should be freed. This was the third time that the people from Koba village are on the streets. Since 2017, Koba village hasn't got a chief.
In a related story, the non-respect of a ministerial order has caused the natives of Batoke village in the Fako division to do a peaceful protest demonstration at the Southwest Governor's office. The natives say they blame their chief for being the stumbling block to the sharing of a land in the Batoke village to the natives. And in a crisis meeting at the Governor's office in Boya, Bernard Okara-Bilai promised to put things in order, as Magikan Gabriel tells us in the report, which comes up next. Once again.
A peaceful protest walk taken by natives of Batoke village to the governor's office in Boya, southwest region of Cameroon. The Batoke natives came to see Bernard Okara-Bilai about some pieces of land that has been surrendered by the Ministry of Land Tenure to be shared amongst families within Batoke. But unfortunately, the chief of the village is refusing. The problem that forced us to come see the governor is about lands which we were supposed to share. After spending some time in front of the governor's office, Bernard Okara-Bilai later received the heads of these disgruntled families alongside some government officials and those involved in the land trouble. The outcome of the meeting was satisfactory to all present.
We're very happy, and all the family.
All of us from the different families who came here were angry, but we are returning to Batoke with happiness. We are glad because all those involved in the problem gave us a listening ear. They have reassured us that we are going to have a positive feedback.
Attend to we, listen to we, and they tell us that they will make a decision for that.
The natives of Batoke village are now expecting on the quick response from the government's machinery within Fako for the implementation of the minister's decision.
And now we talk about the crisis that has been plaguing or going on in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon for several years now, costing the lives of several people, thousands of them. The European Union has called for the negotiations to end the Anglophone crisis. It said in a report that the crisis is highly neglected by the government. Babila Jonathan spoke with a civil society actor, Eric Acha, and now reports.
The European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operations, ECHO, describes the Anglophone crisis as an acute, forgotten crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon.
The EU is finally admitting that this conflict remains one of the most neglected in the world, which is just reiterating what the Norwegian Refugee Council highlighted and stressed in their report earlier this year, where the southern Cameroonian conflict was listed amongst the 10 most neglected conflicts in the world. 10 most neglected conflicts in the world. That means quite a lot. So with the EU report coming now towards the end of 2023, reiterating the same issue that this conflict is underreported, it's underfunded, and it's not gaining the traction that it deserves, speaks volumes.
In its second crisis report, the humanitarian arm of the European Union highlights statistics produced by the UN Humanitarian Coordination Agency, OCHA, and Human Rights Watch. 1.7 million people affected, 633,120 internally displaced, 9,045 refugees in Nigeria, and 6,000 victims as of January 2022, complicating access for humanitarian groups. Challenges persist, such as limited human resources within clusters. In 2023, the European Union allocated 25.4 million euros in humanitarian assistance to Cameroon, both for the crisis in the northwest, southwest, and far north regions. Besides humanitarian action, the EU calls for negotiation to solve the problem.
There is no military solution. No amount of firepower is going to resolve this conflict. And I am quite pleased to see that the EU has in this report stressed that fact that addressing the root causes of the conflict remains the only way out of the conflict.
Meantime, OCHA and partners continue advocating for unimpeded access amid a suspicious environment.
Eric Archer emphasized further that using the military is not going to bring the much desired peace to the northwest and the southwest regions. Let's listen to him in this excerpt.
EU has spoken without waffling there, that is, blaming both sides for the atrocities being committed in the region throughout this conflict. This is something which we all know the current Cameroonian regime will frown at, because over the years, over the last 6 years plus, they have done all what they can. They have struggled to distort the narrative and paint the situation as though it is only the other side that is responsible for the atrocities, for the heinous crimes, for the massacres which we've witnessed across the region throughout this conflict. Here we are today with a report from the EU stating categorically clear that both sides are responsible for that, or for those atrocities. This is very important, and if I were a member of this government or this regime reading through this report, it would be a moment to rethink, because if they should be reading through the same prism which we all are reading, and reading in between the lines, they should see where the EU is coming from and the position they are slowly taking, meaning that it is time for this regime to wake up and know that no amount of military or firepower is going to end this conflict. It is time they get onto the negotiating table and find a way out to resolve this conflict. This conflict will end up on the table, so no amount of killing will resolve the conflict. And this is what the EU is indirectly saying in this report. One would expect the EU to highlight the fact that its partners or its member states should mount the necessary pressure required to bring the parties in this conflict onto a negotiating table.
And now, before we take you out of the country, this Note in Education, an international conference takes place at the University of Douala that would be on the promotion of official bilingualism in Cameroon for 3 days. That is from December 14 to 16. 2023 researchers and university professors from all state universities and York University in Canada shall do a diachronic analysis of official bilingualism from 1961 to the year 2023 and then project perspectives. It will be important to multiculturalism and living together in Cameroon, especially with the context of the Anglophone crisis. And now we take you out of our national frontiers. Hamas officials joined Nelson Mandela's family. That was on Tuesday, December 5, to mark the 10th anniversary of Mandela's death in South Africa. The ceremony took place at a statue of Mandela that was in Pretoria. Malagari with the details.
Apart from family and friends, former Hamas government minister Bassem Naim and a delegation were in South Africa to join Mandela's family on Tuesday, December 5th at the Union Building in Pretoria to mark the 10th death anniversary of the Nobel Peace winner Nelson Mandela. South Africa's support for the Palestinian cause is one of the former president's and anti-apartheid icon's legacies after he compared the plight of black South Africans under the apartheid regime to Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Nelson Mandela is a global icon who dedicated his life to dismantling the oppressive system of apartheid in South Africa, institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination by the white minority. His apartheid movement led him to become president in 1994. He dedicated his life to fight for Africans. Nelson Mandela struggled for a democratic and free society where everyone could live in harmony and equal opportunities. Despite the fact that he was arrested and sent to prison, Mandela remained resolute in his pursuit for justice and equality. He died on December 5, 2013 at the age of 95. His legacy lives on in South Africa and the world at large. One of his quotes reads, "I've walked that long road to freedom. I've tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way, but I've discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many other hills to climb."
Mala Glory reporting to and viewers. That does it for the first part. The news don't go away. Talking Point is up next. Welcome back, viewers. Today we are talking about the quality of university education in Cameroon, or higher education in Cameroon. The question is, can a university graduate in Cameroon make use of his or her degree to create or pick up a job in Cameroon or out of Cameroon easily? And our guest tonight is Dr. Nick Nguayam. He is an educationist and also a university professor. Doctor, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Now, public opinions have it that education or the system in Cameroon is obsolete or archaic, so to speak, and should be renovated. Are you of that same view or opinion, Doctor?
Of course, if you've been listening to me very keenly, I've been shouting in the desert that our education has failed for the last 60 years. We have been doing the wrong things, thinking that we have great universities and we're training our children right. We have been misleading our children and and helping them to drink from the wrong stream. And time has come for us to realize that we've been doing a lot of wrong things and seek to correct that for the sake of our children and our nation. It's very, very important. And yes, the education has to be corrected. You know, I'm sure you have some relatives in America, they would tell you that when you go to America to look for a job, they ask you, what can you do? They don't ask you, what do you know? So the question is, what can you do? And so taking that back to the field, if we were to take all our graduates that have graduated from our universities and say, what can you do? How many of them will pass the test? Very few.
And now, Doctor, my second question is somehow related to the first. Pedagogues should somehow have a lot to do so as to better the curriculum of universities and also high schools or higher institutions of learning in Cameroon more dynamic. Do you have some proposals to make?
That's right. You know, when you're talking about pedagogues, I don't know whom you're looking at. Pedagogues should be the pedagogues are those people who are teaching and who know what ought to be taught. And up until now, our local professors had really failed, okay? The good thing is that at least there's internet, so nothing is hidden. But as many of us begin to look at the internet and Google search and look at what everyone else is doing, we begin to realize that we are our own problems. And especially, we ask ourselves the question, why do we have so many youths on the streets who have graduated from universities riding on motorbikes? Why do you have so many of them running away and dying in Libya as slaves, dying in the Mediterranean Sea, dying in Mexican forests? Why are they running? What is pushing our children away from Cameroon and not bringing them back home? We need to ask that question. And the most important thing, which I have said before, is that our education in Cameroon has been a failure, a total failure, and we need to correct that. Because you see, you cannot give what you don't have. So forget about this thing that children graduate with big certificates and we're having graduations. That graduations is a smoke screen. It doesn't amount to very much. At the end of the day is, you've trained children in the university. In what way have they contributed in the growth of your economy, in your development, in bringing social peace, stability, all of these? So when you have a society which is violent, you have a society in which the economy of that nation is in the hands of foreigners, not in the hands of locals. You have a society in which everything is imported down to rice, toothpicks and fish, toilet tissue. There is a huge problem. It's an indicator of a failure of the training in that country, and that failure goes from primary school up to university level, and all of that ought to be revised. And the good news, again, as I have said, is that higher education is beginning to take some steps to correct that. And then I think there's some pressure on the secondary schools also to do the same, secondary and high schools, and that will go down to the primary school levels.
And now, Doc, you are an educationist. In an educational system, we grade our pupils and students using numbers such as first, second, third, etc. Is that the most appropriate strategy according to you, and has it been efficient to push learners work harder?
Things. If you look at the way we train in Cameroon and most African countries, we get our children to start competing from nursery schools. Oh, you are number one, you are number two, and so on. It's all wrong. When you go to a country like Finland, Holland, Japan, Israel, and so on, that's not the way they do. You don't grade children in that way. You don't set children up to start competing with each other. It's very unhealthy. Why is it so? Because you see, we have different strengths, okay, and we're supposed to work in teams to be able to solve problems. But the way we train in school is we fight against each other, and we continue to fight in life to the extent that husband and wife sometimes at home, they fight against each other instead of working together. And when you see the failure in our government and the failure in our enterprises and so on, is because people have never been brought up together to work together in teams. They fight. I'm number one. I want to be number one. I want to be number two. They fight. They blackmail. They corrupt and so on. And so at the end of the day, we are not doing things rightly. Don't train children to fight. Train them to cooperate and work together and solve problems and build teams. That is the way we should train. And more so, we should get, you know, when we are talking about wealth creation and development, all of that is, it comes from a special type of education that is called STEMs, S-T-E-E-M, science, technology, engineering, economics, and mathematics. So we need to get 80% of our students to be studying STEM subjects. And there's a way of making those subjects easy, exciting, and adorable, so that you can actually start teaching STEM to children from nursery school. You know, like when you have your children at home who are building houses with those building blocks, you know, playing those toys. That's science and technology. That's science and technology. So science and technology is not something that is so difficult. It's just that you need to help people to understand how to think first principles, think physics, think chemistry, think biology.
The future of every nation we know is based on its youthfulness should also have a great role to play. At what moment do the youth have a place in the future of Cameroon or the country's pedagogy?
Sent out about 3-4 months ago, I'm sure you might have seen it, a flyer that I generated. And in fact, there's a fan by me, you see. If you look across, that fan has 3 blades. And I made a paper representation of the fan. I'm sure you saw it. On one of the blades, I wrote politics. On the second blade, I wrote economics. On the third blade, I wrote development. And what makes a fan to turn slowly or faster is the energy that comes to it, which is the electricity, all right? So the question is, what is it in our societies, be it in Cameroon, in America, or China, or in Singapore, that's very successful? What is it that makes their politics to turn in the right direction? What is it that makes their economics to turn in the right direction? What is it that makes their development successful? The bottom line is the electricity of things, as far as this goes, is called education, sound education. So when you have a good education in your country, the indicator for a good education in a country will be good politics, because people know what they're talking about and doing. Good economics, and the people will be able to make money for themselves and create money for the state and so on. There will be money in the pockets of children. You get what I'm saying? And then there would be sound development. By development, we mean 2 things. The development of physical structures, roads, communication, hospitals, housing, water, internet, airplanes, ships. Cameroon would have been building airplanes if our education was good. You get what I'm saying? But when you are still at the point where you are importing toothpicks, it shows you that you are a long way off track. You see that? Now compare yourself, who cannot even make toothpicks, with someone who is making an aeroplane and all these Samsung phones and your camera. Then you see that we are very, very primitive. You get the point. Now, so in all of these things, what is most important, the element that is most important to drive things around is called the human capacity development. Human capacity development is what's the quality of your youths. I'm not even talking about the adults. It is the youths who are the leaders of tomorrow, who to speak, that drive the system. So if your youths are not taken care of, it means your future is dead. So whereas we are saying that our youths are poorly trained, the human capacity development as far as youths are concerned is not, leaves much to be desired, is not good enough. And we ought to do something to correct that. We are not begging people. We are not here to please people. We are here to say there's a problem that needs to be solved, and we ought to solve it. And if you don't solve of it, then violence is waiting for you at your door. Terrorism is waiting for you at your door, because that's what it ends up at. If you cannot take care of your youth, sooner or later they will come for you.
Doc, thank you so much for your contribution. Just to let our viewers know that you, Dr. Nigwayam, you are an educationist as well. Thank you for coming. And viewers, thank you so much for always being there. Don't go away, our programs continue Equinoxe in about 30 minutes, and the news in the French language at 8 p.m. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television.